Guardians outfield has seemed unsettled for what's been like forever. So, of course, we've got a lot of questions on today's mailbag show about the future of the Guardians outfield, who will come back next year, and a possible playoff reinforcement.
Tanner Bibee of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, or whatever day it is you are listening to this episode of Locked On Guardians, and it's a Friday edition. It's a mailbag edition of Locked On Guardians, where we are going to cover your Cleveland Guardians for the next half hour. We do it every day here on Locked On Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, our favorite half hour of the day. I'm Justin Lada. I have been co-hosting this podcast with my friend and co-host Jeff Ellis since 2022. I have been covering the Guardians minor league farm system for 18 years, crazy enough, and I've been watching Guardians baseball since the day I was born.
I am Jeff Ellis. I'm Jeff Ellis, as you mentioned, one of your two co-hosts here. I have been since the beginning of Locked On, when they decided to expand into the realm of baseball. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout and 24/7, focused on prospects and the draft. And according to some people, I never watch any games. At least that's the theory that occasionally pops up. It always amuses me greatly.
What is baseball? I don't know what that is.
I don't know. Yeah, never watch anything.
What are we here to talk about?
I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts, as well as taking a moment to say a big shout out to all of our everydayers. I know many of them have comments today in the mailbag. Sorry to those who cannot get to. We had dozens of questions, and we probably don't even have time for a dozen questions. So thank you. We lock them away and revisit them later.
Yeah, we have over 20 questions for today's show. We will get back to them if we don't hear it today. So promise you at some point we will answer those questions. On today's show, it is a mailbag edition of Locked On Guardians. We'll talk Travis Bazzana extension, possibly. Is Chase DeLauter a potential playoff reinforcement call-up? And, of course, we'll start with another outfield question, the future of Lane Thomas. Before we get to all that good stuff on today's show, it is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Jeff, let's get right into it. Let's not waste anybody else's time. Let's start with Kevin. Kevin says, hey, is Nolan Jones going to be DFA'd if Lane Thomas comes back? Relatedly, would it be a good idea to try to sign Lane Thomas to a one-year prove-it deal for 2026? Keep up the good work. First thing I listen to every morning. Thank you, Kevin. And he was at the Citi Field game on Monday, so good series to be at. That's a good question. I feel like I feel like Nolan Jones could be the odd man out. I would say I'm not as worried about who it would be on the 26-man or the 40-man roster, because they have roster fodder on the 40 to bring guys back. Although is Lane Thomas, he's on the 60, right? So I guess that's make him on the 26.
Is he on the 60? He might still be on the 40.
I think Thomas is on the 10-80 IL.
Yeah,
so he could,
I don't think they have to move
their 40-man spot. I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, I could see them just adding Thomas and adding a pitcher, because you're not going to add a catcher. So would they have 6 outfielders? I don't know.
I think we're just at a point. I don't think he gets cut, especially because, I don't think we're probably going to see him back anytime soon. And
no sooner than September.
No. So it's like by the time he comes back in September, he could just be that extra hitter. And they don't have to cut anyone, because here's the thing. I still think they don't know what they're going to do with center field next year, and Nolan Jones gives them another depth option. There's also a place where Angel Martinez goes down, because Angel Martinez, he had the home run the other day, but
I don't think he's going anywhere.
He is very up and down. He has options, which, again, we know sometimes that matters. And
well, it won't matter for September, because
I know
they won't need to clear a roster
spot.
So I think
they
Thomas
more than likely won't. I don't know.
Extra.
I could still see them wanting to add a third catcher, because that is their history as an org. But
if they have a piece to do it, which they just don't this year, they don't have a guy they can do that with.
They've called up some pretty terrible catchers to be that third catcher in the past.
We have to go back and look. So I remember Eric Haas and some other guys. I don't remember a really name.
And you could probably go get Eric Haas. Wasn't he just cut? If they really
he was just cut. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah. As far as next year, I would say Lane Thomas, re-signing him. I mean, you have to check the medicals first, because plantar fasciitis sucks for him. It sucks for everybody, given his future. So I don't know. You have to check the medicals, but I wouldn't be against the idea of it, because I think it could give you an option in center field, and he's definitely going to have to take one of those deals next year, no matter what. So you might as well give it a shot if the medicals and the money is right.
Yeah, it kind of comes down to, it feels like, will he want to do that? And, will
I don't think he's
Cleveland
going to have a
want to take that
choice.
gamble? I mean, he might. I mean, guys like him, there's
He's
always a
not
few
going to get a
options.
lot of options.
Oh, no, I'm not saying
offers.
he's going to get a big deal, but he might view it as, a better chance to go to an even worse team where his playing time could be more guaranteed than Cleveland.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. It's like he could decide, hey, I can go to Colorado maybe, where I'm going to be in an environment that's more hitter friendly. So that's just the thing with him. I think they hold on to Jones because of versatility, and they'll always send down someone who has options rather than cut someone who they think has a role.
Yeah, possibly, for sure. I would definitely revisit the Lane Thomas thing in the offseason. Nolan D, is Khal Stephen a comparable? Khal Stephen, I keep doing that. I have to get used to that. Is Khal Stephen a comparable prospect to Tanner Bibee or Gavin Williams in terms of how fast they can go through the system and potential? I don't think Khal Stephen has the potential of Williams. I didn't think Bibee had. I mean, I know he's struggling this year, but I think Bibee. I don't think Stephen has the potential Bibee does now, but I didn't think Bibee had this potential as a prospect until I saw him for the first time and all the things that happened. But I think in terms of moving quickly, I think there's a world where Khal Stephen is a guy who you can consider next year, depending on the composition of your pitching staff, whether it's AAA or the majors.
I say
he doesn't
no,
have Williams upside for sure.
I say no, he won't. And the main reason I say no, he won't is because the only reason those two moved that quickly is because the Cleveland had to due to injuries and everything else. So they were moved specifically for that reason. Plus, guys who are traded typically take longer to move as well because he's got to get here, get settled. He's going to spend, he's not, I mean, what if he's lucky, just maybe 1-2 starts in AA this year? Like, he's going to spend a good chunk of next year in AA, kind of getting settled with a new org, with the expectations. And then, I don't think he's really an option for next year. I got to be real honest, unless a hand is forced. But that's why you have guys like Messick and Peterson, who I think you'll add anyway. So I think he's pretty far away relative to all things.
That is a good point. Bibee, Williams, and even Allen arrived a little bit sooner than Cleveland intended because they had to. With those three guys, Ciccone and Nikhazy and Messick and Peterson, you're right. They won't have to do that next year unless there are some trades or just a ton of injuries, bus crashes, who knows? Not good. Don't like all that. Kyle D then wants to know, do you think our farm system is stronger or weaker than right after the 2016-2017 run? Does the future seem a little bit brighter?
I mean, I go back to the 2016-17 run and I look at my prospect lists, and it's like I remember being super high on Yandy Diaz when the rest of the world was like, who is that? Like, I had him top 5. It's like, yeah, he was fun, but Juan Hillman was in my top 10 back then, and he was a good prospect. He wasn't great. Guys like Francisco Mejia was an up and comer at that time. They're not bad lists. It's just like, Bradley Zimmer is what he was. Brady Aiken is a what if. Clevenger turned into a good player. Small window, but he's a good player. Diaz was good. McKenzie had a small window of success. Nolan Jones, Juan Hillman. I like what Cleveland has now better than this, but the other thing about 16-17 is they didn't have any high picks. Like, that was essentially after they traded Frazier, and Frazier was the last high pick because then they made the playoffs every single year outside of the year they drafted Benson and Jones, and other than that, it was just playoffs. This team is now, Chase DeLauter was a pick in the teens. Of course, Bazzana was the number 1 overall pick. They've had a lot more opportunities to make it a stronger minor league system as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at my 2016 list too. Tristan McKenzie was the top of my rankings 2 years in a row. Bobby Bradley. I mean, in 17, they did have Shane Bieber, and I had him ranked third at that point, going into 2017. So after that, it was like Eric Haas and Nolan Jones and Yu Chang. And, Nolan Jones has had one good year at the majors. Willie Castro was in my top 10. Aaron Savali was my top 10. So was Connor Capel. I definitely believe in this system a little more right now than I did back then. But there's the same thing. Like, Brady Aiken was a part of that group in 2016, and guess what? He's no different than Chase DeLauter, because Chase DeLauter at least he's on the field. When he performs, and he's on the field, and Brady Aiken just was neither on the field nor performing. But then there's Bobby Bradley, who, there's guys in the system that are comparable to that. So I would say it's definitely a little bit better right now. I don't know if it's a lot better. It's more top heavy than it was back then. which is what I would say. All right.
Yep.
We got a lot more questions to get through. We're going to try to get to as many as we possibly can in today's Locked On Guardians, so stay tuned. I know I have made that last second decision to go to the ball game. I know I said I went to the athletics game, the first game out of the All-Star break. I wanted to be in the stands. I wanted to see, Nick Kurtz come to town in the athletics. So I used Game Time. It was the easiest way for me to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. And because I saved money on tickets, I only went by myself. I didn't bring friends, but bringing friends is always a good thing to do. But I was able to splurge on a better seat, some good food. It was Dollar Dog Night, so I didn't splurge on good food. But you can if it's not Dollar Dog Night. It made it really simple and easy for me. And I looked right before first pitch, honestly. Like I think an hour before the game is when I did it because prices go down. So all the guesswork came out. I got a great deal. It was really simple, really easy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, jumping right back into today's mailbag. Let's see. Jeff M., better known as Cheeks. What's the biggest indicator of success you have seen with prospects over the years? Who are the guys that met that indicator but fizzled out? That's a tough one.
It is. You can go back to before I was a co-host with you, where I did a whole off-season series about this, where I looked at every top 100 prospect and why they failed. But as I was telling you off air, I guess the bigger issue for me with this is I don't really have indicators of success as much as I have indicators of failure. It's easier to pick out what is going to make a player not be successful, because a lot of guys can, be unsuccessful no matter what. But there are things that definitely through the years, like if a strikeout rate is too high, or if a strikeout rate is too low, if you're a pitcher, if a walk rate's too high. There's things like that stand out where I'm kind of like, this is going to lead to a player not being successful. So it's more that players have to step over certain failure markers for me. It's like if you're approaching a 30% strikeout rate, that's going to scare me off at any level in the minors, but specifically more in the lower levels, because I know that's going to balloon up. If you don't have a strikeout rate over 8 when you're at any point in the minors, that's a scary situation, because that's just going to go down. Like if you're a pitcher. So there are those things. So I don't really think it's, failure versus, for me, it's not really markers of success. It's what you have to do. It's what you have to be able to cross over to be successful, which is, I think, why, like, when the draft came, a lot of people were not happy with my takes, but that's just because for me, I found over the years that it's easier to eliminate who's not going to be successful. And then from that pool, you look at the top performers, and then those are the players you focus in on after that.
Yeah, I think it took me a while to figure out, like, age to level was one of those things, not necessarily a trait, but it's one of those things you want to look for. Because, like, Kai Tom was a guy that was really interesting, and everybody was like, oh, bring him up, put him on the 40. He got taken in the Rule 5 draft and never really made it anywhere.
But it's also noise sometimes. Like, age relative to
level
it's
also noise sometimes. Yeah, it is.
It's a tricky one.
I will say Greg Allen is one of those guys for me. I was a believer in Greg Allen as a top of the order, like, table setter, kind of leadoff hitter. His strikeout rate was in the teens. His walk rate was in the double digits. Like, had good BABIPs in the minors. He was fast. I thought he played good defense.
Never made a wrong read.
Yeah, I thought he would be an MLB regular. I really did, and he hasn't. He's just been a fifth outfielder, and yeah, that's one of those indicators that I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure these things fit, and they didn't translate. But that's when we started learning. Kind of, you can look back, like walk rates and strikeout rates don't translate as well to the majors as we would like to think, unfortunately, which is tough. Here is a fun one from Carlos C., a new insider. Thank you, Carlos. Odds that CD, put this in there, CDIL. That's an unfortunate nickname, CDIL. Comes back from injury it does fit. Comes back from injury in time for the playoffs and is the Guardians version of Evan Carter during the 2023 World Series run. For reference, for those who don't know, Evan Carter was, I believe, 20 years old. He was the Rangers, first or second round pick in 2020?
Second rounder in 2020.
And nobody knew who Evan Carter was. Like, he was a totally off the board pick, by the way, which was hilarious. But
he wasn't off the board, but he was viewed as an overdraft. Like, he was a known guy, but he was an overdraft.
But he didn't make his major league debut until playoffs for the Rangers in 2023. So
no, he made it before. That's one of the things. He played 23 games leading up to the postseason. He played last month for them. Yeah, so that's not quite.
All right. So could we see the same thing with Chase DeLauter?
I do want to point out, since then, Evan Carter has failed to be a regular, has struggled at the major league level, and has been a below average bat, has not been good. So I don't know if you want to say that comp out there. A, B, it's a no. They're not going to.
I don't think it's a player comp. I think it's more of a situation.
No, I know. But I just want to point out, like, the Evan Carter, because Evan Carter got a ton of hype off of that, where he's the, candidate for rookie of the year and this or that. And he was one of the top 10 prospects in baseball. And here we go 3 years later, and he's still he's only played 55 games for Texas this year. But no, they're not going to risk the injury. He's got too many other issues and stuff. He's done for the year. He might come back and get a few reps, but even that would, to a degree, surprise me. I just feel like they're not going to. Handmates are notoriously long recovery injuries. Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, no.
Yeah, it's the nature of the injury that makes me say no. Unfortunately, if it was anything else, I would say maybe. The other thing that DeLauter is fighting uphill against too is obviously his time. But when he comes back, how much of the minor league season will there be left? Can he get? Because ideally, what he'd have to do is come back. He'd have to get some rehab reps in AAA or something, and then they'd come up. And at that point, you're fighting the clock because you have to come back and play a couple games in AAA, however many, and then come to the majors. Like I think the time is against him, and like you said, the injury is just a little too severe. Kevin O, I like this question a lot. This is an interesting one. Given their position in the standings right now, they have a chance to postseason. This is true. Do you think they made a mistake not adding at the deadline? Jeff, I will say no, because I don't know. There was no player at the deadline that changed hands.
I agree.
There was one. I'm sorry. No, there was one player. There's one player.
Ramon Laureano.
I was going to say Jesus Sanchez, but because you wanted Jesus Sanchez.
I did. I've wanted him for a while.
That's the only regret I would have. But then again, we don't know. We were talking like, oh, would Miami have taken Logan Allen instead of I forget who Miami even took from the Houston Astros. It was it was a pitcher who was up this year who had pitched for them. I believe Cleveland faced him, but
Ryan Gusto.
Yeah, we don't know if Miami would have favored any of Cleveland's pitching prospects over Ryan Gusto or whatever. That's the only regret I have. But outside of, I guess, like you could say Ramon Laureano because he might fit a need instead of Lane Thomas. But Jesus Sanchez is really the only guy I can sit there and say, like, that's the only regret. Otherwise, nobody really changed hands where I'm like, gosh, they should have got in on that no matter what.
I mean, I agree with you for the most part. I think there just wasn't a lot there. Like, you weren't going to go and pay those expensive prices for relievers that were out there. There wasn't, a really fun under the radar guy. I also throw out Alex Khal. I mean, my two outfield targets throughout this year were Alex Khal and Jesus Sanchez. Sanchez has a 104 WRC plus right now. Alex Khal has a higher WRC plus than Stephen Kwan this year. Like he's, but it's a similar profile. It's the whole, walk, don't chase, don't strike out. He's doing the same things Kwan does, but this year he's doing it at the same level. And it's, I'll say it again, like this is the downside of this team having been so good for so long. Like I know that sounds like a dumb statement, but it's Alex Khal, Nolan Jones, and Will Benson all came up about the same time. Two of those guys got a look, and two of them had trade value, so they got moved because they didn't know what to do because they wanted Brennan, and they had other pieces as well. And Khal was the guy who just got cut. And you look back a few years later, and Khal is right now performing the best of anyone in that group. So sometimes if you don't have the reps to give, you'll never know what you have. And Khal, it's not just me, being overinflative here. The Dodgers gave up, a top 10 prospect for him, and not a lot of top 10 prospects moved at the deadline.
No, it was a better deadline in terms of prospects that moved than it was a year ago, or the last 2 years, I think, according to JJ Cooper from Baseball America. Just because it was a better deadline than I expected. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, Khal is doing very similar things to Stephen Kwan, and like you said, he's been better than him this year. There's no power. Like I think Kwan's had a little bit better power. At least he did it early in the season. Alex Khal has had zero power this season. No, that's
very fair.
But yeah, it's just pretty much all left field defense, contact, and walks, which is good. That's a valuable player. Obviously, there's a reason the Dodgers aren't stupid. They didn't give up things for him if they didn't think he would be successful. And he's one of those guys who doesn't chase. Yeah. So those are the only two guys I could sit here and say, like, that would have made a ton of sense to do. Because ideally, what the Guardians would have done was avoid the rentals and go with the long-term fits, because that may have made sense for them, whether they were competing the rest of the year or they were trying to compete for next season. So yes and no. Like if they would have bought a long-term piece, it would have made sense. I think a rental, I mean, obviously given what's happening now, a rental would have made sense, but at the time, I would have been like, rental doesn't make sense. All right. We got Travis Bazzana questions. We've got pitching questions, and we've got nickname questions.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up and college football isn't far behind. It's the perfect time to lock in your season-long, more or less picks for the 2025 football season, all before week 1 kicks off. Whether you've got an eye on a big-name quarterback or a breakout running back, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. Here's what I love about Prize Picks. It's simple. Just ready? More or less. That's all you got to know. More or less. They're going to give you a stat category. You're going to decide, is it more? Is it less? You can pick it for a whole season long. You can pick it for one game. It could be something as simple as like, how many receptions this receiver will have in a game, or, how many, why can't I think? How many touchdowns a quarterback will throw in a season? It is as simple as that over at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. Run your game.
All right, jumping back right into the mailbag because we have so many questions to get through and so little time. Let's go to Mike P. Do you think this pitching staff, as it stands, is capable of winning a World Series? Can they withstand the pressures of the playoffs? Will they have to get there and learn the ropes first? Thanks for considering questions. You guys do a great job, and I enjoy listening every day. Thank you, Mike. The starting pitching staff, if they can get Tanner Bibee back on track to what we know he can be, which, might be challenging given what's going on this year and how deep we are into the season. But if they can, I think a rotation of Williams, Bibee, and Ciccone, is it capable of winning a World Series? No, I don't think it is. I think that it's going to be very hard for these guys to go to the playoffs and win the World Series right now, especially considering Tanner's the only guy that really had a good playoff start a year ago. Williams was terrible because it was a terrible year. He pitched well in that. He pitched well in that last Detroit start and the first Detroit start, and then
he was up and down in the postseason. Like, we can't really sit there
he was good on 3 days rest against the Yankees, except for that pitch to Giancarlo Stanton. Like, that was the only pitch that he regretted.
Yeah, but close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, right? Like, you can't say he was good outside of one pitch when the pitch.
All right, so he was the best starter they had outside of Matt Boyd last year in the playoffs. Gavin Williams was terrible, and Ciccone, I don't know, playoffs seem hard for him. So I would say no. Even though I think it's an interesting future core. We had a question from David Y, who talked about the future core of this team, which we can get into.
I think it's just like, I think it's an unknown at this point. Like, very honestly, it's like Tanner, we've kind of seen him over the years. It feels like he gets really amped up for games. And sometimes, like, a lot of people in our comments are talking about like his body energy on the mound, and that like Austin Hedges needs to go and talk with him about getting too down. And we've seen him sometimes what looks like getting too amped up. So I think just one of the big things with Tanner in the postseason is getting more reps and it being more old hat and not that thing that maybe he's too amped for. And with Gavin, he's a whole new pitcher now, so time will tell. And that's the thing with all of it. We kind of have to see how these players respond when they get the opportunity. Until they're out there pitching in that, we can't say for sure. I think, on paper, they have a staff that could maybe do it, but I just need some actual data.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, this version of Gavin Williams for sure gives me a lot of confidence going into the playoffs if they gets there. I mean, I think that's where he's at right now is a huge revelation. He's a guy I think could have playoff success, especially knowing what he went through last year. So I think we're seeing the makings of a rotation that has the potential. But right now, this year, no, I don't think so. Sorry to throw cold water on everybody. Norman M, here's a good question. So Roman Anthony just signed an 8-year, $130 million extension with the Boston Red Sox. It could be 9 years, $230 million if he maxes it out with all those incentives. So Norman N wants to know if there's any chance the Guardians will sign Travis Bazzana to an extension per, Roman Anthony, Jackson Chourio. So Jackson Chourio's extension with the Brewers came before he even played a major league game. Roman Anthony's came with 20 or 30 major league games at this point. I don't know how many he's played, but he's at least had some big league run before. I don't know. I think they need to do it. I think the Guardians that they should do it. Will they do it? I think
say
they'll
no.
approach. Okay, see, I think they'll approach it, but I don't think Travis will take it. That's my guess. Is even if they do approach him, I don't think Travis takes it.
I don't think they do either, because they never have. They're not going to. The thing when you invest in a player that young is especially if he's never been up. Yeah, they've never approached any of their top prospects, and so many guys who are even very good. Andrew Benintendi was the top prospect in baseball. I can bring that up. There's so many other guys. There are top prospects that just die on the vine or turn into league average players. And while the Anthony contract on paper comes out to about 16, 17 million a year. If Roman Anthony, and he's been great so far this year, turns into another Benintendi, then you're paying too much for a guy and you're stuck for 8 years. They're never going to do that contract. They're never going to give anyone an 8-year contract who's not proven. Jose is the only guy who's ever getting that deal. That's just never going to happen. I don't see, with the way they operate on the margins, they can't afford to take that gamble.
Yeah, and the thing to note too is that these pre-debut extensions, these pre-ARB extensions, if you go look at the big ones like Bobby Witt and Roman Anthony and Jackson Chourio, let's say, most of them are going to guys that are not college players. Like Bobby Witt was a high school player, Roman Anthony high school player, Jackson Chourio was an international signing. A lot of the big ones are guys who were
Christian Campbell, college guy.
Yeah, they didn't give him a ton of money though. He's not a big I think Jackson and obviously Roman got a lot more. Because the thing is, with college guys, when you already have them for, let's say, 7 years, if you manipulate service time. So Travis is 23, right? He'll be 23 next year, I think.
Maybe in 24 next year.
So you'd essentially be trying to get a couple extra years out of that contract.
Yeah, he turns 24 next August.
So
he's 23 at the end of this month.
So the Guardians give him 8 years. Let's just imagine 8 years next year at some point. You're essentially he'll turn 23
end of this month.
Yeah, he'll turn 23 at the end of the month. So next year he'll play all year at age 23, basically. So you're essentially signing him into his age 31, 32 season. If you give him an 8-year deal, I don't think he wants that, because I think he wants to get to free agency a little bit earlier. And also, if he's going to take that deal, I think he wants to be wrapped up to age 34, 35, and the Guardians won't want to do that. And all this is subject to change based on the next CBA, because we have no idea. But ideally, the reason you're giving out those 8-year deals is because you're signing these guys at age 21 or age 22 versus at age 24, right? Because then you're buying them into their mid-30s, and that's always the risk. I would still do it, but I think even if the Guardians did it, I don't think Travis accepts it, because it doesn't make sense for him. All right, Jeff, let's end on a fun note. Matt M., one of our insiders, the incessant use of Y in Guardians nicknames. I think this is across baseball, to be honest. Got Hosey, Kwani, Hedgie. Matt wants to know, should they be calling us Laddie, Ellisy, Justiny, Jeffy?
Well, since my name is Jeff Ellis, I mean, Jeff E was something I definitely caught at points, because it's, Jeff E is literally my name if you shorten it. Growing up, though, since I was a son of a Jeff, I was Little Jeff was the nickname. I do not want that one to become my nickname now. That was
son of a Jeff. I think to keep the show PG, I think we're gonna have to start using son of a Jeff on the show.
Somewhere down here, I'll have to look next year. I'll make this promise to our listeners. Somewhere down here, because it was my grandma made it for me, so I adore it. I have the little stocking that says Little Jeff on it, so I'll bring that around the holidays so people can make fun of me for that. But yeah, that's people always like a Y. I agree. That is a very common lazy nickname. It is.
That is. I did not have a real nickname in high school. My only nickname in high school was JR, because someone in my high school was going around just calling people by their initials, which mine are JL. And I thought he said JR, and from there on, I was JR. The rest of my high school, or most of my school life, I got JR. So
see, I got jealous, because J plus Alice, jealous.
Oh yeah, I don't have any great nicknames. No, I've never had any fun ones. My fantasy baseball nickname with my friends is Moonlight, or a moonshine gram instead of moonlight gram. It's moonshine gram because we did a fantasy baseball draft one year, and I decided to make a moonshine based drink, and I had a lot of it, and I spent like $30 on way past peak Miguel Cabrera. I tried to bid somebody up for Kyle Seager, and I went too far, and I had a bad year. So my name in fantasy baseball is Moonshine Graham, but that's as close as I've gotten. Anything that's like stuck permanently. But I don't know. If you got a good one, I would love to hear it. Someone did ask about extending Gavin Williams. We did not bring that up on the show because it's not going to happen.
He's a Boris client.
Yeah. Which I also learned, by the way, looking at Instagram on Thursday, is that both Ralphie Velasquez and Josh Hartle are Scott Boras clients. So if Ralphie Velasquez stays on fire and he gets the big leagues, you can also
enjoy him.
That out. Enjoy him. Yeah. Gavin Williams, we're not going to go there now, but future trades, that could be a thing because he is a Scott Boras client. So yeah, there's no extension happening there. We can talk trades about Gavin Williams in our time, but for now, let's see if he can break the no-hitter drought.
Yeah, right now we need this Guardians team to take care of business, keep the heater going against a White Sox team better than a year ago, but still not very good. Weird team.
Friday, big start for Tanner Bibee because he's going to want to build off of. He's a competitive guy. He's going to want to build off of Gavin Williams' success. Mm-hmm. So we'll come back on Monday and we'll talk Guardians, White Sox. I'm saying the Guardians got a sweep. They didn't get a chance. They didn't sweep the Rockies. They didn't sweep the Twins. They got to sweep the White Sox. That's what I'm going to say. Even though they just swept the Mets, it's going to be hard to do. But I'm going to say you have to sweep this bad team.
It's a shame the White Sox didn't make more trades. One of your favorite targets, Mike Tauchman, would have been someone who could have helped this team. That was someone Justin was all over this offseason. But thank you for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily, leave some iTunes reviews. Thank you all, and go Guardians, go.